What's going on, guys? Dropadooski here. Today we're going to be doing our suggested starter builds for the Heist League for Path of Exile. Now, as always with these builds, we're going to be focusing on new player-oriented content, things that are easy to level, typically fairly cheap to get started with, and can do most content, if not all content in the game. Now, last league we did something where I broke everything apart into individual sections. It seemed like a lot of you guys liked that, so we're going to do this again. As far as the Heist League is concerned, I think it's going to be really fun and engaging. I wasn't a big fan of Harvest, as I think that a crafting mechanic needs to be combined with a more, loot-based killing kind of thing. So with Heist coming back to those things, but also in a different way, I think it's going to be really, really cool. All of the builds that we're featuring today, I will have an attached document with links to all of the build guides, and in them they'll have videos or other things for the things that you've decided that you want to start the league with. I will briefly mention what I think about some of the new gems at the end of the video, and we'll talk about the potential builds that I want to work towards after my first default standard that I'm going to make a bunch of currency on. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The first thing we want to talk about in the Spellcaster area is Big Duck's Poison BV Assassin. Now, I did a leveling run with this and was potentially going to use this as my starter. I'm actually going to go TR Mines now, but I really enjoyed this build. It does a ton of damage, it's super fast, and it's very consistent. It seems to do really well with bosses, and the YouTube guide that he created for this build is pretty detailed. So it goes over, different ways to level the character, how do you get it all scaled up and ready to go for endgame, and overall it seemed like a really nice pick for a starter for most new folks. Now, Assassin did take some nerfs on certain ascendancies, but on this one it didn't get affected, so you should be good to go with this setup. I really think that if you're interested in Blade Vortex and also want to dabble in Poison if you never have before, this is a great pickup and something that'll be a lot of fun to start the league with. The next thing we want to talk about in the Spellcaster section is Dark Cell's ED Trickster. Now, ED has been a go-to staple starter build for a long time. It's very strong and consistent for players that are looking to, be able to do all the content with, pretty low investment. I mean, it does have some high cost gear when you get towards endgame, but something like that is, in my mind, not a negative, as you want to be able to invest as much as you possibly can in a character to make its viability last for a long time. This build is super consistent. The guide is really well done on the forums, and there is an associated video with it as well. This is a super old staple build, so I'm sure a lot of you guys have played it before, but if you're on the fence about certain new skills and you want something that you can consistently farm currency on with relative ease, then ED Trickster is a really solid pick. Last but not least on the Spellcasters that we're featuring is Vortex Cold Snap by Gazi. Now, this build has been around forever, and we had a thing on Twitter recently where someone said you got to make sure Vortex is in there because it's so cheap and easy to get rolling and can do all the content in the game. And I totally agree. We always have Vortex in here, and it's a really good staple build for you to use at the start, or progress it and keep investing in it as you go and make it a really solid long-standing build for the Heist League. Now, I've used Gazi's build before. A lot of people have played it, and it's very consistent, and it's got a very good guide to follow along with. Also, Gazi does a really good job of giving about information on his Twitch stream. So overall, I think this is a great pick, and if you're interested in playing something cold based that can also do a ton of boss damage, then the Vortex Cold Snap build is really good. Now, a couple of honorable mentions I want to throw in here too. You've got Enki Arc, you've got, there's actually a huge variety of spellcasters you can use. I think these ones that we feature today are going to be consistently really easy for new players, so definitely take these into account when making your choice. But remember, I do put extra honorable mentions in the written guide, so go through that and take a look to see if there's anything else that we didn't feature that you might potentially want to play. First thing we're going to talk about for the utility section, which means mines or totems or anything that does the damage or puts out damage for you, is the Toxic Rain Mines from Crouching Tuna. Now, this is actually what I'm going to start my league with. He did a really thorough, good guide on YouTube about his league starter, and somebody from community showed me this, and I gave it a try and a couple of practice leveling runs, and I really like it. It's very strong. It's got a ton of evasion, so you're pretty safe. Now, as far as hardcore is concerned, he does mention in the guide that this isn't something he would take, but if you're looking for something that does really well, the damage is very reliable, and it can do all the content in the game for fairly minimum investment. I think this is a great pick. The combination of the caustic arrow mines, the clear is just unbelievably fast, and then you've got the toxic rain that's just melting bosses. So it's a really solid starter if you're looking to do something in the mines area. Next, I want to feature Wallach's freezing pulse totems. Now, I had never actually played this specific type of totem. Normally I stick with Divine Ire or Arc totems or something like that. I set this up to give it a run and test it out and see how it felt, and it's really cool to do. I know a lot of other streamers and other people play freezing pulse totems at the start of the league, and honestly, purely for its survivability aspect, I mean, it's freezing everything as you run around, so it keeps you feeling relatively safe. I think it's a really good starter for someone that's really new to the game. I love totem builds, totems and mines specifically, as that's something that I have. I did my first Uber Elder kill on Arc totems. I play mines or some form of mines just about every league. I really enjoy the utility aspects in Path of Exile. So for someone that's new, looking for something that's consistent and also, pretty safe in most instances, especially in the two guides that we're posting in the description, freezing pulse totems are a really good pick. Now, as honorable mentions, and we kind of just touched on that, but you can use a lot of different spells with mines and totems. Arc is always a safe grab. Divine Ire totems are really good. I did put a guide link in the description in the honorable mentions for the utility section for Divine Ire totems. So if you're interested in trying totems either for the first time or wanting to go back to something that you've used in the past, I really think they're going to do well in the Heist League. So now for the melee section, I'm going to talk about two different setups, and they're both from Don the Crown. Now, I don't do a lot of melee myself, so I'm normally kind of light in this area for the suggested starters, but I have played the Impale Cyclone that Don did as a starter for an SSF, and it was really nice. Now, Cyclone has been a mainstay in regards to melee tunes in just about every action RPG, since Diablo 2. So it's just a really solid pick for melee. It's still very strong, and it can still do just about everything in the game for pretty minimal investment. One thing to keep in mind with melee is you have to be really diligent about, keeping your physical damage up on your weapons as you go. Now, Don's Terminus S version, I use the Terminus S in the SSF because it's really easy to get as a unique, and it was really nice. Now, the other one I want to talk about from Don is an Earth Shatter build that he did last league. I do have someone in community that played it and loved it and is planning on starting it again as they've seen, it's still going to be great. So if you're looking to do melee, Don's the go-to when I'm looking for melee information. So both of these builds should be great, and there's tons of other options out there. So if you're interested in melee, it's definitely going to do well in Heist League. For the archers, the build that I want to feature today is Zizzarin's Bleed Bow character. Now, Bleed Bow has been really strong for a few leagues now, and a bunch of people from my community have said that they're planning on starting Bleed Bow. This one that you see in the background is the first time that I've actually ever set it up and played it, and honestly, it's very satisfying. The bleed pops that you get on the character have this crunch to them that makes it really fun to kill the enemies. Plus, even not fully optimized, I'm still really quick on this character. So I can imagine as you go through the league and use this as your league starter, it could be very powerful and very fun to play. Now, some other honorable mentions in the archer category are Remy Caster's Toxic Rain. I played Toxic Rain multiple times, and I really liked the detail of the guide that he had on the forum. So I think this is a good alternative if you're not looking or interested in doing Bleed Bow. Another one is Deadbeam's Poison Scourge Arrow. I really like the Scourge Arrow setup. I've done that multiple times as well. So if you're interested in doing archers, I definitely think any of these would work well, and they'll all be in the written document attached at the end. But if you're leaning towards Bleed Bow, I will tell you that this is going to be a very satisfying, fun, and fast build to play for the start of the league. So it's definitely a good one for you new players out there. Last but not least, I did want to at least throw in some Necromancer gameplay. Now, the one that I'm going to talk about specifically today is Kay's Spectre setup. Now, she does a really, really good job of staying on top of keeping this guide up to date. There's multiple different types of Spectres in the guide, so it's like kind of a go-to, you know, Spectre / Necromancer setup that you can use. I've played this build 3 or 4 times now. I just love the way that the Spectres themselves look when attacking. Now, we did get some huge nerfs to, you know, the OP Spectre from last league, so that's going to go away, but I do think that Slave Driver Spectres is going to be super fun. And if you follow Kay's guide, she does a really good job of keeping it up to date. And if there are other Spectres that are super viable or also, you know, going to do potentially more damage output or keep you safe, then they'll be in there. So Necromancer, even though it got hit, a lot of people like pets, so I really wanted to keep this in here as I really like this build, and it's really fun for killing bosses, especially if you're new, because, you know, they prevent you from dying. You know, the great thing about these pets is that you can keep them, you know, keep yourself away from the damage while they just annihilate bosses. So still going to be really fun to play this league. Lastly, I want to talk about some of the new gems and some of the things that I'm kind of excited for trying. Now, I never feature brand new gems or the suggested starter guides for brand new players because honestly, until we see them perform, I really feel like it's something that we need to, you know, it's better to go with the default build that we know is going to work before transitioning into something that we're not really sure about how it's going to perform. Now, if I were going to go the route of starting with some new skills, the things that really stick out to me are Crackling Lance. Right now, Crackling Lance looks very, very powerful. And to be honest, for those of you guys out there that have played for a little while, you can probably take like an arc tree, you know, a standard arc setup or a lightning setup, switch out arc for Crackling Lance and destroy. It's going to be really powerful. It's got a little bit more base crit, the same flat damage, plus you get all the bonus damage benefits from the intensity stacks. So I think it's going to be a really, really good one, and I'm looking forward to trying it in the league. The other, you know, active skill gem that I'm really excited for is Hex Blast. Now, just looking at Hex Blast, it looks really, really powerful. But I mean, this morning, myself and another person in community were in Discord. You know, there's just so many ways that you could make this powerful, you know, via Ignite or just the flat damage or the explosions from curses, or you know, you got to big brain it for a while. So for Hex Blast, I'm going to wait a little bit, kind of see how things develop. And I have some ideas, so I'm hoping to put a build out for that at some point. One other thing I want to quickly note while we're talking about new gems is pinpoint support. Now, pinpoint support is going to be really good for all those spellcasters that have projectiles, right? So in the past, we're using, you know, lesser or greater multiple projectiles. Now we can use this, and this is going to just be more damage in general. You don't need the green gem. You're going to reduce a lot of those, you know, dexterity requirements, especially on an int character. That's going to be great. This is going to be the go-to for those, so you're going to switch that out if you're doing anything in regards to projectile-based, you know, spellcaster stuff. There's a lot of cool things with the gems, and you know, don't forget to take a look at the, you know, the altered quality gems that are coming out. I don't think that's exactly what they're called, but there's a massive list of these alternative quality gems, and you can look at these, and as you go through Heist, remember that maybe your potential starter skill has some really cool side options that are going to be available. That's just going to make this build or this league so much fun and very interesting. And so as far as gems are concerned, I think all of those things are going to be really cool to play with as we go into the league. Okay, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you, everybody, for checking it out. Now, if you are a new player, I do have a ton of other guides that are really helpful for wrapping your head around the, you know, the core concepts of the game. We've got some Atlas stuff. We've got a ton of introductions to crafting. I'm sure those of you guys that this is your second league may have utilized some of the harvest crafting that's going to go away. So a lot of our crafting guides go through fossils and using, you know, general currencies in order to do some really good crafts. So if you're new, definitely check those videos out. A huge shout out to all the content creators who created all these builds. You know, I've played all of them, and they're all great. You know, they're really good default starter builds, and I think that every one of them that we featured today can do really well in Heist. I'm just really excited to see what escaping feels like and how difficult and challenging it's going to be as we go through. Once again, guys, if you've never seen my Twitch stream, I do stream on Twitch 5 days a week. It's twitch.tv/dropadooski. Stop by there anytime if you have any questions. You can also join the Discord channel. We've got a lot of good people in Discord who play all kinds of games. I'm going to be going really ham in Path of Exile for about 6 weeks, and then we're going to jump over and play some Shadowlands because I'm excited for that as well. Thank you guys so much. Good luck in the Heist League, and we'll see you soon.